Welcome to the third annual Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Convention, known colloquially as MANC, here in Aberdeen, Maryland, Clarion Hotel, Friday, day 2, September 19, 2008. My name's Derek Tay, and I'm honored to have, sitting to my right, your left, two of our stars who have flown in for this particular weekend. We have from the film They Came From Outer Space, Kathleen Hughes, and we have everybody's favorite cavalryman. He just floored everybody last night at the last minute. We had him be interviewed with Ed Burns. Larry Storch, let's give it up for All right, so for those of you who weren't here last night, Martin Graham's our fearless leader and producer, the guy who stages this whole thing with a lot of help from his immediate family and a bunch of other staff members, puts on this MANC convention. And we had a drive-in movie last night out in the back. Anybody come to see it? We were a fair amount of people here. And your film was being showed. It came from outer space, so it was a real treat. And those of you who missed it, try getting out a day early next year for this convention. But do you have any particular fond memories of that film that you're best known for? It came from outer space.
Well, I just know I worked so hard to get that part. I had just signed at Universal, and I had done a picture called Sally and St. Anne with Anne Blythe and Edmund Gwen. And I had a very big part in that picture. And after I finished the picture, they asked me to be in a test for the 3D cameras because Universal was going to make a bunch of 3D movies. And they picked me to test the cameras on because I was very three-dimensional and I was a pinup queen. And so they had me parade back and forth on a runway in a bathing suit to test the cameras. And after the test was finished, I said, you know, what is this for? What's the movie you're going to make? And they told me. And I got the script, and I read it, and it was already cast with the leads, but I found this little part. And I said, I want to play that part. And they said, no, you can't play that. It's just one scene. It's too small. You can't do that. We'll get somebody else. Well, I argued and argued and argued for weeks, and I finally wore them down. I said, how can it be too small if it's in 3D? You know, I've got to play this part. So they said, oh, okay. You know, they let me do it.
You played a role in your bathing suit?
No, the test was in my bathing suit.
In your bathing suit?
Yes. Yeah.
Go to your room.
But it was their idea, not mine. I would have had more clothes on.
Speaking of bathing suits, I don't know. I picked up these two articles about you. One was from the esteemed Earl Wilson. It was a drama critic. He was a gossip column, drama critic, man about town, kind of a society column too. And one from Sidney Skolsky, the famed, to use the term variety scribe. And these were both from the New York Post in 1954, and they both have nice, you got two nice write-ups, and accompanied by photos with you in bathing suits. And I just want to remind anybody if we're not in the area, I live in the New York area. The New York Post was not the disreputable rag that you know it from today. It was a very respectable paper under Dorothy Schiff's ownership back in the 50s, pre-Rupert Murdoch. But you had nice write-ups here, and did you really want to be Shirley Temple when you were young, according to this?
Yeah, I think I really did, because I'm, you know, pretty much a contemporary of Shirley Temple's, and I grew up watching Shirley Temple pictures, and yeah. I loved her. I wanted to be her.
Mm-hmm. And later on, it said you aspired to be more like Jean Crane.
Yeah.
She was the star ingenue at 20th Century Fox around the time you started. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, I never thought of myself as a sex bot. And I had long brown hair, and I looked like Alice in Wonderland. Mm-hmm. And I thought Jean Crane was just, you know, wonderful. That's what I wanted to be like. And it wasn't until my agent sent me to audition for a picture with Paul Henry called For Men Only, which they later changed the title to The Tall Lie, because under the title For Men Only, people thought it was a sex film.
Was it?
No. It was about fraternity hazing in college. But in order to get the part, I had to become a blonde and cut my hair, and I was transformed into a sex pot. And that just changed my whole life. I no longer wanted to be Jean Crane. I wanted to be Marilyn Monroe.
What year approximately was that?
Oh, what year was that film? The Tall Man, the For Men
Paul
Only?
Henry.
All right.
Paul Henry.
Well, I was at Fox 48, 49, 50, so this would have been 1951.
And some of your other Fox credits were Mr. Belvedere Goes to College with Clifton Webb. I'll See You in My Dreams. Was that Danny Thomas played a songwriter? Was that?
Yes, that was Doris Day and Danny Thomas.
And one of my favorites is an underrated baseball movie called It Happens Every Spring with Ray Milland.
Yeah, and Gene Peters.
Yeah, and any fond memories of those people and those films and all?
Well, what was the one you mentioned before? I only had one scene.
Mr. Belvedere?
Oh, I loved working in Mr. Belvedere. That was great. But It Happens Every Spring, I had the one scene, so I had no real memories of that. Roadhouse was my first picture. Now, that was really something.
Was that for Fox or Universal?
Fox. That was the first picture I made after I was signed by Fox. And it was Cornell Wilde, Ida Lupino, Celeste Holm, and Richard Widmark. I mean, what a cast. And Ida Lupino was just so fantastic. And I just had, glorified extra part, really. But because of that, I spent day after day after day in the Roadhouse where Ida was playing the piano and singing. And that was just so wonderful.
And you also did some TV credits in the 50s. Ozzie and Harriet, Bachelor Father. Later on, a couple of Hitchcock episodes. And Hitchcock must be famous around here because Martin Graham's our organizer wrote a book about him and had a presentation about bloopers in the movies with a lot of things that got by in the Hitchcock movies. So anything about Hitchcock?
Well, I never met Hitchcock. He didn't direct the ones that I was in. I believe Norman Lloyd directed one of them.
He's still with us, right? He's
Yes.
93, 94
Yes.
maybe?
And also Norman Lloyd then later directed me in The 7-Year Itch at the La Jolla Playhouse.
Oh, wow.
Don Taylor, Willard Waterman, and who else?
Okay, and Willard Waterman, the great, one-time great Gildersleeve.
Yes.
And also Ozzie and Harriet, Bachelor Father. What parts did you have? Somebody's girlfriend, perhaps, or?
Well, in Ozzie and Harriet, I played a sexy girl in the park practicing the trumpet. And at that time, I didn't know how to play the trumpet. And so they had given me a trumpet to take home with me. And I don't know why I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard with it the day before, holding this in my hand, and a musician said to me, "Do you play the trumpet?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I'll teach you a scale." And so he taught me the first 4 notes of the scale. And, of course, I was totally dubbed in the Ozzie and Harriet episode, pretending to play it, but they put the sound in later. But after that, I